In this video, we'll be translating complex word phrases to algebraic expressions. We'll begin with 4 easier examples, followed by 3 more difficult problems. If you need to learn or review common word phrases before tackling these examples, watch my other video linked in the description. Now we want to pay attention to these 4 phrases in particular: sum, difference, product, and quotient. These 4 phrases will follow the same format, and that is, they say of this and that. Now, this and that can be individual numbers or groups of numbers, and we'll see what I mean in the following examples. Our first problem is 5 times the sum of a number and 7. We see the first word, times. 5 times something. So we can go ahead and write 5 times, and then it's going to be the next quantity, 5 times the sum. Well, the sum represents a quantity that we're adding together, and we want to find out what we're adding together. Of this and that. So in this case, it would be of a number and 7. A number just represents a variable, and we can use x. So we could say the sum of x and 7, or x plus 7. So the final answer looks like 5 times the quantity, x plus 7. Our next problem is 9 more than the difference of 12 and 8. Now we recognize our first phrase, more than. More than means to add, but in this particular case, it's saying 9 more than something. That means we're going to add plus 9 to the end of it, because it's 9 more whatever comes next. That number is the difference of 12 and 8. Difference means to subtract, so the difference of this and that would be 12 minus 8. So we can go ahead for our final answer and say the quantity 12 minus 8 plus 9. Our next problem is 16 less than the quotient of a number and 4. We see here the first phrase, less than. In this case, it means to subtract. We have 16 less than the next quantity. So we can go ahead and write minus 16 here. So we're going to subtract 16 from the quotient of a number and 4. So we can look at this as the quotient of this and that. Quotient means to divide. So we have a number, which means a variable. So we can just use x. X and 4. The quotient of x and 4 is x divided by 4. So we can arrange our final answer as x divided by 4 minus 16. Next we have the product of 11 and 2 divided by a number. Now our first key phrase that we see here is product. That means to multiply. So we have the product of this and that, which is 11 and 2. So we multiply 11 times 2. And then it's saying divided by a number. So we're going to take that quantity, the product, and divide it by a number, which in this case we can use x. So our final answer looks like the quantity 11 times 2 divided by x. These next 3 questions are a bit more difficult at first, but hang around and see what you can learn. So we have the product of 6 times a number and the difference of 15 and 2. Now this is a bit more complicated than our previous examples, but let's just break it down bit by bit. When we read this, the first keyword that we see is product. Now remember, we're looking for the product and the key phrase of this and that. So the product of this, in this case, is 6 times a number. And we can see it's separated by the word and. So that is this. What is that? Well, we can read it again and find out where we're at. So the product of this, which is 6 times a number, and that, which is the difference of 15 and 2. So we can put those together, and that means we're going to multiply those 2 quantities. So our final answer looks like 6x times the quantity 15 minus 2. Our next problem is the quotient of the sum and 7 and a number and the difference of a number and 4. Let's break it down, starting with the first key phrase. We see quotient. We're looking for the quotient of this and that. But we want to be careful with which and we're using in the sentence. The quotient of this, the first phrase, this refers to the sum. So we need to look at the sum. The sum is 7 and a number. We can represent the sum as 7 a number, which is 7 plus x. And we can put some parentheses around this to help us group it together. Now we're looking for the next and, for the quotient of this and that. That is referring to the difference. So what is the difference in this case? It refers to subtraction. So the difference of a number and 4. So we can go ahead and use x minus 4. So let's put some parentheses around that quantity and go back to the quotient. It's the quotient of this and that. So in this case, we have 7 plus x divided by x minus 4. In our last problem, we have the sum of the difference of 9 times a number and 3, and the quotient of a number and 20. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to just take it piece by piece, starting with the first phrase, the sum. So we're looking for the sum of this and that. Well, this is referring to the difference, because that's the first phrase right after the sum. So we're going to take a look at the difference of 9 times a number. 9 times a number is just 9 times x and 3. So 9 times x minus 3. That is the difference of that quantity. So we can go ahead and group that together. Now we're looking for the that portion. The that portion refers to the quotient. The quotient of a number and 20. We can call that number x. So we have x divided by 20. Now let's bring it back to the beginning. We have the this and we have the that. So we're going to add them together because we're looking for the sum of this and that. So we end up with 9x minus 3 plus the that, which is x divided by 20. That's it for this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.